We've got a toilet here and the siphon in it has been playing up a bit. Every now and again when you flush the handle, the toilet hasn't been flushing. When your toilet starts doing that, it could be a sign that your siphon's about to wear out because there's a membrane in the bottom of it, and if that gets punctured or doesn't seal properly, your siphon doesn't work correctly and then you can't flush your toilet. Now the last time one of these went on me was on Christmas Eve, and it was a bit of a rush to get down to the local DIY store and get a new siphon before they closed. But this particular toilet is going to be a bit tricky because it's not been fit very well, and there's a big gap at the back here that's been filled in with a piece of wood. So this is going to be a bit harder than a normal toilet because I'm going to have to mess about with all the packing at the back. But it is quite a big job, but it's not over complicated. But if you feel it's too big of a job for you, obviously you're better off getting a plumber in. Before you take your cistern off, you need to make sure that you've got the correct siphon. So you need to measure the actual height of the siphon that's in there and get one that's the correct size, because there are about 3 different sizes of siphon. And also, because this is a closed couple toilet, which means it's connected directly to the toilet pan, you're going to need a close coupling kit to couple your toilet back up, because the chances are that the old one will be that rusty that it won't be any good at all. So the first thing we're going to do is remove the cistern lid, and we need to put this somewhere safe and lay it down flat where nobody can stand on it, because the last thing you want is to lean it up against the wall. If it falls over, it's going to break, and then you need a new cistern lid. So you've got to put it somewhere safe. And then if you look here, we've got a stop tap, which is handy because we can just isolate the water there for it. So we'll just close that off. So now we need to get rid of all the water that's in there. Now if your siphon's gone completely, you're not going to be able to do this, but I'm just going to flush it to empty the water out. So we've still got a couple of inches of water in there that we need to get out of there before we can remove it. And also just point out what I said earlier about the toilet not being fit very well. So it has got quite a few packing pieces down the back of there, so it is going to be a bit more complicated doing this one. So to give us a bit more room in there, I'm just going to unscrew the float. And then all you need is some kind of container that you can push in there and ladle the water out. So you can use anything for this, but if you just push it in and start ladling out the water, you can then pour this down your sink or down your toilet pan. It is clean water. Now when you get to a certain point, you'll find that you're not getting much water out anymore with the container. So that's where the old sponge comes in. So all you need to do is push it down there and soak up some water, and then wring it out in your container or wring it out in the toilet pan. So we've got virtually all of the water out of there now. So we now need to remove that nut from the bottom of the water inlet valve, and of course this stop tap is turned off. Now normally there would be water up in there, but I've already undone this once because I forgot to switch the camera on. So all you have to do is get your adjustable spanner on there, loosen it, and then you can pull it off. And there will be a little bit of water left in there that will drip out. These wing nuts that are on here are very rusted. So what we're going to try and do is undo them using an adjustable spanner. And that is actually just spinning right round. So the only option left there is to actually cut that off. So these nuts are completely rusted up and they won't undo, and we can't get an hacksaw in there to cut properly because of the porcelain. And no matter which way we have the hacksaw blade, we just can't get in there because we're hitting the porcelain each time. So the only tool that I've got that will cut up there is a cordless angle grinder. So a word of warning, you are in a bathroom, so whatever you do, don't bring a mains voltage grinder in here. Make sure it is a cordless one. And also make sure you've got your safety glasses on. because it can be quite dangerous, this. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the cordless angle grinder and we're going to slit up the nut. And once we've slit up there, we should be able to get the wing nut off, and then we should be able to remove the cistern eventually. And there we go, we've now got the wing nut off there. So we now need to repeat that process at the other side. And we also need to undo this nut, which is the overflow connecting nut. So if we just unscrew that. So now we need to remove the 2 screws that are holding the cistern to the wall. And they are quite rusty, as you can see. So I think we'll be replacing those with some new ones. And as you can see here, I can't actually get the screw out because of the water inlet valve. So I'm just going to have to take it apart and then we can get that screw out. So we'll put that back in there later. So now we can remove the last screw. So we've now removed the 2 nuts from underneath and the 2 connections on the 2 pipes from underneath. And we've also removed the 2 screws from the back. So now there's nothing holding the toilet cistern onto the toilet. So we can just pick it up now and lift it straight off there. And I'm going to put it on a bench to change the siphon on because it's a lot easier doing it that way. Now obviously I'm going to have to watch out because these packings are going to drop down on this one. So what I'll probably do when I move the cistern away is I'll just put some silicone behind them to hold them in place. And then it's a bit easier when we come to refit the cistern. So when you've got everything off it, all you have to do is grab it from underneath and just lift it straight up. And as you can see, that's come off there quite easily. And if we look down here, the actual donut washer has actually stayed stuck to the toilet pan. So we just need to remove that because we have got a new one of those. So that can go straight in the bin. So I'm now going to do some cleaning up around here, and I'm going to make sure that I clean up any metal particles that have been left behind from the angle grinder because they will go rusty. So before we can get the siphon out, it's a lot easier if we can take the lever arm off, but it is quite rusted up, that screw. So I'm going to try and grab it with the mould grips and see if we can just undo it. And I have just sprayed it with some penetrating oil. So there we go, we've got that out. So we can now slide the lever arm off the lever. Which will make it a little bit easier when we come to pull the siphon out. And also, whenever you do a job like this and you go to buy your parts, you're better off going to the cheapest place you can, which is usually online or your local plumbers merchants. Some large plumbers merchants give Joe Public a bad deal and they'll really rip you off, so you've got to be careful where you buy stuff. So what I usually do is, when I'm doing a job like this, I think about what I'm going to need and in case something goes wrong. So just in case something went wrong, I bought an extra lever arm. And also, because this is a close coupled cistern, we're going to need a close coupling kit. So I bought a new one of those and they're only about £3. So it's important that you've got everything before you start, otherwise you could end up chasing your tail and you could make it a much more difficult job than what it actually is. So now all we need to do is remove this big plastic nut. And it is a bit rusted up, that, but it is moving now. So if we just unscrew that nut, So we can take that off, and if we just waggle the siphon from the inside, we should be able to pull that out. This one is actually sealed in with plumber's mate, which you don't really need on a system because you get a sealing washer with it. And if we pull that out there, you can see that the plumber's mate is all around the bottom, which you just don't normally need. So now if we just get a screwdriver in there, and we should be able to just lever that off. You can see that there's another sealing washer there, and then the actual metal plate. Now I haven't actually got a new washer for there because that's not come in the kit that I've got, so we're just going to reuse the existing one and hope that it seals. So we're just going to give it a wipe in there with some paper towel. And it's important that we get the centre clean there where the new siphon's going to seal. You can buy a normal siphon for about £3, but this one's about 18 quid. But it's well worth paying that extra bit of money for it. Because once you fit one of these, you'll never have to mess about again doing this. So the kit comes with a few bits that you're not going to need. You've got a couple of comb washers there, which are going to be used if you've got an high level or a low level toilet. And another one there, and then you won't need that either. So the only bits we need for the close couple toilet is that washer and the nut. You've got a few options when you set this up. You can use that rubber washer there and place it on the inside of where the diaphragm is, and you can convert it into a single flush unit if you want, but this one's actually a dual flush cistern. So you have the small flush and you also have the big flush. And then you have these plastic tabs that you can pull out depending on how much water is in your cistern. So for a modern toilet you just leave it as it is, but this particular toilet I think is a 7 litre fill, so we need to pull the bottom tab out of there, and it's just a case of popping that out like that. So why is this siphon 18 quid when you can buy a normal one for £3? Well, it's quite simple. It's got a peg there, and when you pull that plastic peg out you can actually split the siphon. It actually splits into 2 parts, and you can lift that part off and you can service it, and then you can just slide it back in. So by doing that, it means you don't need to remove this part from the actual cistern, so it's an absolute piece of cake. You don't need to take the cistern off the wall or anything, so once this is fitted it should make this job an absolute doddle next time somebody comes to replace a siphon. So all we need to do is take our rubber washer that came with the kit and put it on that end. Now there's a lot of debate about whether or not you should use silicone on these joints, and to be perfectly honest you don't always need it, but I mean if you put your system back together and it is leaking, you can undo it again and you can put some silicone around there to seal it. It won't do any harm, but if you can get away with not using the silicone in the first place, it is better, because silicone does tend to expand and contract, which can loosen the seal. So now all we need to do is put this plastic tube through the hole in the bottom of the cistern. And we know that it goes that way because that's the way where the siphon flushes. So all we need to do is push that through the hole in the bottom of the cistern. So now we've got the plastic piece from the siphon sticking through, we can just slide on the metal piece from the fitting kit, and you do have to make sure that that is square with the bottom of the cistern, or else it won't fit back on properly. Then all we need is our new plastic nut, and I'm actually just going to measure this from the back of the cistern just to make sure that it is square. So if I put that up there, you can see it's about 13mm, and there it's about 9, so it needs twisting that way a little bit. So I'll just check it again. Now we've got about 10 at that side, so it's still not quite square. So we've got about 11 there and 11 there. So it is quite square now in that position. So I've just marked around there using a blue pen, so we know if that moves and then it's in the right place when we come to tighten it back up. So I'm now holding the siphon on the inside, and I'm tightening the plastic nut up using a pair of water pump pliers. And the trick is not to over tighten that, because if you over tighten it, you'll probably damage the seals. So but when you've got that tight, all you have to do is push the rubber donut washer on there. And that's how that goes back. One thing I'd like to point out is that if your toilet's in this position and you've got no cistern on the back, you can still use it. And the same goes for if you come to flush it one day and you can't flush it. If you feel that you can't do a job like this and you need to call a plumber out and you've left him a bit of a present in the toilet pan, you can always get rid of it using a bucket full of water. So all you need to do is fill a bucket up with water from the bath and then just pour it down there quickly. And as you can see, that's cleaned everything out of the toilet bowl. So if you do have to get a plumber out, or you need to use the toilet when you've got no cistern on it, or the siphon's not working, you can always get rid of anything that's in the bowl that way. So we've now got this assembled again, and we've got the siphon in there, and we've got the fitting kit fitted to the bottom of the cistern, and we've got the donut washer in place, and that just pushes on there. So now all we need to do is get these two bolts and align them with the two holes on the back of the toilet pan. So I've now put a washer on there and the wing nut. So we're just going to nip that up, but we're not going to tighten it. And now we need to do the same on the other side. And then what we're going to do is we're going to tighten both wing nuts at the same time so that it pulls the cistern down squarely. So you can now tighten both wing nuts up at the same time. And now they are reasonably tight. So I've now just put two screws back in, holding the cistern to the wall. But instead of using the rusty old washers that I took off, I've put a couple of stainless steel ones on. And I've also siliconed them in. So now we just need to put the internal workings back into the toilet. And then we can get this working again. So we now need to get the rest of the siphon in there, which is this point. So if you can see that flat piece of plastic there, that's where we actually need to locate the siphon. And then the top bit just locates there. And then it just pushes down into there, and that's made a good seal now. And then all we need to do is push the plastic peg in. And now that siphon is securely in place. So then all we have to do is put the lever arm on that we took off earlier. So that just hooks around the C-link. And then you have to actually get the handle in the correct position where it will be for flushing. And then push the lever arm back on there. And then we just need to tighten that grub screw up. And that's the old siphon part actually finished then. So I've put the water inlet valve back that we took off earlier. So now I'm just going to screw the float back onto the end of the float arm. So now we can connect the cold feed up to the water inlet pipe. So we just need to push that on there. And then tighten the nuts. And then that just needs nipping up with a pair of adjustables. And then at this side you just need to push the overflow pipe back in there and then tighten up the nut. So now for the moment of truth. We're now going to open the stop tap and we're just going to allow a little bit of water into the cistern. So I've put about an inch in there now. So we can now just check and make sure that there's no leaks anywhere. So we're just going to open the stop tap again now. And we're just going to make sure that the water inlet valve's working as it should. And you can see that is working perfectly. So all the time whilst the cistern's filling, we're just going to keep checking for leaks everywhere. And it's a good idea to keep stopping the water as it's going in, just to check, just to make sure there's no leaks. Because the last thing you want is it filling up and then you're having a leak. And that looks pretty watertight, to be honest, so I think we can pretty safely open the stop tap now and fill the cistern completely. So it's a good idea when you've replaced your siphon just to keep checking for leaks, just make sure you haven't got any. Because if you do get a tiny leak, next thing you know, it'll be coming through your ceiling downstairs and then your wife's not going to be very happy. So that's how to replace a siphon in a toilet. This of course is a closed couple toilet, which is probably the hardest one to do. If you've got an high level toilet or a low level toilet, it's a lot easier because you don't need to remove the cistern from the wall to do it. So this is the hardest one to do, and we've just done it now, and it's works as it should do. And we've also put a better syphon in there, because next time we need to change the syphon, all we need to do is pop the pin out, lift the syphon out, we can then service it, we can put a new membrane in there, whatever, put it back, and it's a lot easier for the next person. Another great benefit of this syphon is that it's a dual flush syphon. So if you just press it down and let go of it, it'll flush the full tank. But if you press the lever down and hold it, it'll just give you a small flush, which will flush away any liquids. So it can save you quite a lot of water as well. So if you're on a water meter, or if you care about saving the planet, you can just fit one of these and you can save some water. So we've already tried giving it a full flush and that works. So this time I'm going to flush it, I'm going to hold the lever down. And there you can see, that's just giving us half a flush. And if we flush the lever and let go of it, that'll give us a full flush again. Now what we need to do is put a label on, so that people know that they can get a reduced flush out of it. So I'll just peel that off and we'll just put it on there.